Sugar made by honeybees, and I'm slowly hypnotized by, hypnotized by, hypnotized by.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this Wisdom of Trauma community panel discussion held together by HomeTree Co-working and MaximiseMe. This initiative together is brought together by Dr. Gabo Mate, a documentary that follows trauma and illness and addiction and how it is an ecosystem all connected and is something that we can all relate to from some form. I would like to introduce the panel without any further ado. The co-founder of HomeTree, Semal Luthra, is also a passionate advocate for bringing mindfulness into the way people work, having spent 10 years of her life among in the States and in the UK, studying and working as a design thinker and consultant before leaving the corporate world, where she pursued projects that were close to her heart. Welcome you, Semal. And leader at MaximiseMe, Niki Gomez, thank you for being here and giving us your time and your passion towards this very important topic. A little bit about Niki, obtaining an MBA from MIT Sloan and over 20 years marketing in career expands Europe and Asia. And facing struggles with fertility issues is something that kind of brought along MaximiseMe, a company bringing health and wellness coaching to couples that are trying to conceive, practicing the wellness in the UK and in India, is currently serving as a health coach in functional medicine. We have Kumudini David with us today, a voice coaching talent extraordinaire, developing her own curriculum in voice training. An artist, business consultant, marketer analyst, and an advocate for child rights, mental health, and sex education. Shifani Reffai, a Colombo-based creative, teaching and studying languages, working in visual arts with a deep interest in psychology, therapy, methods in human behavior, and freely speaks about her experiences with childhood trauma, depression, anxiety, and a proponent of healing through community and humor. Thank you, ladies, for being here with us. We have Yasodhara Pathanjali, a British Sri Lankan master life coach, fine artist and designer, an author and a social media influencer, as well as a homeschooling parent. We have Iranjali from Adhati Consultancy, which is a niche organization rooted in psychology, a management psychologist and cognitive behavioral coach, working with organizations and individuals to promote holistic well-being and how they can prosper, grow, and succeed to their fullest potential. Thank you, ladies, for joining in and bringing in what's going to be a very interesting conversation. For anyone who would like to just be aware before this discussion starts, there are topics of trauma and there are topics of addiction that will be discussed. And if these are content that might be triggering to you, we would kindly suggest that you reach out to a professional that can help you. And if there's anything that we at HomeTree can do on that behalf, kindly reach out. Leave any questions in the chat box, and we urge participants to keep themselves on mute unless brought forth. Thank you and enjoy it.
Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to this community discussion. Thank you, Alvin, for all the introductions. Wait a second. Okay, Alvin, I think I need to be spotlighted. Okay, so I'll let him sort that out, but I wanted to give a big welcome to the amazing panel that we have here today. And to start with, I just wanted to bring in Niki Gomez. Niki was the one who suggested to me that we need to really show this film. Also, a big thank you to everyone who has come in today for this discussion. These are difficult topics, but we need to talk about them to open them up and to heal and work through them. So I'm really grateful for everyone who's taken out their Saturday afternoon to come and talk about hard things. So welcome everyone. And before we start, I wanted to hear a few words from Niki, whose idea it was to actually host this community discussion. Niki, could you just tell us a little bit about what inspired you to have the idea that, okay, we need to do this for Sri Lanka? Yeah, so if you could say a few words, please.
Yeah, hi everyone, and yeah, welcome to a Saturday of discussing hard things, as Semal said. You know, I've been working with psychotherapy practice in Dublin, led actually by a Sri Lankan called Dil Wickramasinghe, and through that practice, which is called Insight Matters, I found out a lot about Gabor Mate, and then through my own health coaching. And when this film came out, I watched it and I was just blown away by him. I mean, in general, if you're interested in this area of addiction and trauma, you know, watch all his talks. He's just brilliant, and he really is provoking as well, obviously. And so I thought that Sri Lanka is somewhere that obviously we don't talk a lot about mental health issues in general. You know, it's something that people hide very much. So I thought it would be good to bring this out and to discuss some of these issues here. I also see that, you know, in our culture, there is a lot of what Gabor Mate talks about in terms of hereditary trauma being passed down intergenerationally, which I'm sure we'll talk about. So I thought that would be something that would be interesting for us as a culture to talk about.
Thank you. Thanks, Niki. And then I wanted to bring in Shifani Reffai. Shifani, would you like to just introduce yourself and also what brings you to the community discussion, anything that stood out for you in the film?
Sorry, I was muted. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here. And it's so amazing because I bumped into Niki at something and now I'm meeting her here again. And then Semal, I have been also in sessions with her about her upcoming show, The Inner Reset. So it's all kind of converging here, I feel. And there's a community, I think, of women that is, especially women who are growing in Sri Lanka and internationally, I think, where we're trying to explore intuitiveness, we're trying to explore healing and trying to look at the ugliness, which we were talking about earlier, the hard topics, trying to look at it in the face of it. And there has to be some courage to do that. And so it's beautiful, I think, to see different people, you know, going after that and being like, I'm going to look at it in the eye and then try to troubleshoot it and figure out how as communities we can start to heal. So that's something I've always been interested in. And personally, I try to do it through humor and music and conversation, organic conversation, and you know, open spaces where we can talk to each other frankly, you know, honestly, and not hide the taboos under the carpet, but let's talk about it. And you know how they say, like, the truth will set you free. You know, I am such a believer in that.
So happy to have you here, Shifani. And I totally agree. I think this is a passion we both share about creating non-judgmental spaces where people can discuss and talk about things, because I really feel like that's the first step to heal. And next, I would like to bring in Iranjali Abeyratne, who has been following the work of Dr. Gabor Mate for quite a while and is a psychologist as well. So welcome, Iranjali, and please share a few words about this work and what brings you.
Thank you for having me. So yes, like you said, I've been following Dr. Mate for a while now, and especially his work on trauma. I feel that it's really, really interesting and important because his own experiences in life, where he was born and during the period of the Holocaust, and as a topic in developmental and child psychology, we learned about how children develop and attach and form attachments. And so deprivation and privation can have negative consequences for children. And of course, over time, that evolves into really difficult social issues as well. So not only is it at an individual level negatively affects the person, but then the society as a whole. Now, when it comes to Sri Lanka, it's really important to draw the parallels because we do have a lot of wisdom we can bring in and unlock, so that we can make people aware of certain things that Dr. Mate talks about when we move on to the topic, because I think it's really important, especially when he says that it's generational, and also things like disconnection and how it could affect relationships, and also why people may get addicted to certain substances, alcohol, food, and form these negative self-sabotaging behaviors. So happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks, Iranjali. Next, I wanted to bring in Yasodhara to the discussion. Yasodhara is a coach, an amazing artist, and also someone who talks a lot about parenting and homeschooling, so bringing a different angle to parenting. So welcome, Yasodhara. Welcome to the space.
Hi, Semal. Hi, everybody. Thank you. I'm really honored to be among this kind of very high-level bunch of ladies here today. So thank you for that invitation. For me, something that I would really like to take this opportunity to highlight is we always look at, and this is something that I find a lot in my clients, that we look at trauma as something really big and something that that we have to we are ashamed of, or something that happens to other people and something that's a really big deal. But actually, a lot of the time, trauma is something that is very everyday. That could be small. It's like I always talk about, like, in childhood, we can get a little scratch, and that's a trauma. But an arm break is also a trauma. Being burnt is every little thing can be a trauma, right? And so we should really start looking at ourselves as not like, oh, I've had this perfectly fine life and there are other people out there who are traumatized and who have experienced trauma. No, if we have been alive, we have all experienced trauma. It is not an alien thing. It is not a big thing. It can be a big thing, but it can also be a small thing. It's something that comes in all shapes and sizes and varieties. And you should not be doing that thing of, I've done it in my lifetime. My clients do it all the time, of saying, oh, but my experience wasn't as bad as some other people I've heard about. But if it hurt you in a small way, in a big way, that's trauma. And that's okay to seek healing. It's okay to say you were traumatized. And it's time that we kind of understood it in this kind of very pedestrian, very everyday sense, rather than seeing it as something that's very big and alien that happens to others. And that's something that I'm very keen on kind of getting across to as many people as possible out there. But yeah, very much looking forward to this discussion today. I do apologize if I come off a little off. I'm going through some stuff, but I'll do my best to hang on today. But yeah, really excited to be here.
Thank you, Yashodhara. And last but not least, Kumudini David. Kumudini is an activist in child rights and so many amazing things, helping women speak more clearly, be more bold. And she's such an example of someone who really lives and is proud to be the person she is. So welcome, Kumudini, and welcome to the chat. And tell us what brings you here and your thoughts about trauma.
Hello. I hope I'm clear. I'm talking. Yes, I'm clear. Someone say
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
clear or not. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I am traveling and I beg your pardon in advance. All right. So why I'm here is because I honestly do think there is wisdom in trauma. I, for one, certainly know that I wouldn't be me if not all everything that. And I find I am in post-traumatic growth in many things, and in some things maybe not. But definitely, I've come to realize that there is always a way to look at the good. You learn, you take the good, you learn from any experience is my motto now. And like Yasho said, trauma is very personal. It is what is traumatic to you is traumatic to you. There is no one who can tell you that is not trauma or this is not trauma. I mean, there is no standard set way of judging trauma to say, okay, this qualifies as trauma. So it is very important that we realize for ourselves what triggers us. And I believe we need to take responsibility for managing our own triggers and not projecting it on others. That is something that we do as a society quite a lot. The other aspect that I also want to talk about trauma is that it's got normalized. For example, child abuse is so normalized that corporal punishment is considered a good thing in Sri Lanka. Abuse of male children is normalized as a rite of passage for manhood, and things that people who they don't realize that they're traumatized sometimes. They don't realize that they're causing trauma sometimes, a lot of times. And those are things that we need to pay attention to. So mindfulness is something I am very big on, and it is something that I pull into on psychological principle. And it is a huge component of everything that I stand for. And that's why I'm here. I believe in learning. So thank you very much for having me. And it is an honor to be amongst all the fantastic ladies here. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you, Kumu. So to start with, I wanted to actually play a clip from the film. I think they have a really good I think they have a really good introduction and a really good explanation for trauma. So we'll play a couple of clips from the film and then we will go into the discussion. So just bear with me while Alvin, I need to be able to screen share. And now I can screen share. Yeah, thank you, Alvin. Okay, so just give me a second while I figure this out. Okay. Can you share? Yeah.
Our earliest experiences, being in the womb, form the template of who we believe we are, about how we see other people and our place in the world. When I see human faces, I see beauty, I see tremendous suffering, and enormous potential for transcendence. A Greek playwright wrote that the gods created us, human beings, so that we have to suffer into truth. Our job as human beings is to learn from our suffering. We don't have to keep perpetuating pain for ourselves and inflicting suffering on others. In working with so many people, I've learned that working through trauma can teach us so much wisdom and can reveal the beauty of our existence that because of trauma we had lost sight of.
Just gonna skip
Because in
forward.
30 years or more of medical practice and of addiction medicine, what I found was that the common template for virtually all afflictions, mental illness, physical disease, is in fact trauma. And there's a wisdom in trauma. When we realize that our traumatic responses and imprints are not ourselves, and that we can work them through and thus become ourselves. Virtually every week there's a study that more and more people are needing or seeking help for mental health issues. More and more youth are diagnosed with anxiety. Many more kids are diagnosed with the whole plethora of childhood conditions such as ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Depression is rising. Youth suicide is rising. Addictions are rising. Genuinely, it's an epidemic. %20 of youth or more are now diagnosable with anxiety according to all the recent studies. That's 1/5. And those are all the people who are sufficiently anxious to be diagnosed. Well, we're talking about an epidemic.
So yeah, I will stop it here. So quite a powerful beginning and really talking about some important things like anxiety and how anxiety has become today very much a lifestyle and a way we live, and how trauma kind of relates to anxiety. So yeah, I wanted to kind of open up the floor on two topics. One is trauma and how we define trauma. So in the video, it talked a lot about trauma being disconnected from our feelings. And then the second thing is what we're seeing a lot happening in society, which is physical health illnesses. Even when I kind of talk to a lot of Sri Lankan youth, I've seen a few people tell me that they regularly take pills for anxiety or have other health ailments, which are becoming much more normal now than, at least for me, 20 years back, I didn't hear of it as much. So just in the experiences you've had, either personally or with the groups of people you work with, how is trauma becoming a part of our lifestyle and what can we do about it? Who would like to start? Anyone can go. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So what's the question again? Like could you repeat that?
Trauma, so anxiety. So like in the video, it talked a lot about how anxiety, like 20% of youth are facing anxiety, and something even I've faced. I know that you faced a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
And how is it becoming normalized?
Oh yeah, for sure. This is the theme of 2021 for me, and like the previous year also maybe a little bit. And it's insane because first of all, that film is so beautiful. Like I completely resonate with it, and I can't wait to watch the whole thing properly. And it's so beautifully hits the point so hard and nails it. And I think that he's right. There's definitely something that has shifted. There's way more anxiety, way more like a dissonance with the body that we're experiencing, I think, as communities now. And I also I remember since I was young, I've known about 5 to 6, 7 people who have taken their own lives by suicide, and countless people who have depression and anxiety, and it's almost like everywhere. If you look and if you listen, sometimes people manage to conceal it well, but there's definitely just this horrible gut wrenching, blood curdling pain, I think, and suffering that is spreading through, and nobody is really diagnosing it. Nobody's stopping and saying, okay, there's something off. Rather than doing that, we're all posting happy pictures on Instagram and saying everything's fine, perfect marriage, perfect family, perfect whatever, and no one, we are not creating a safe space to speak. And through speaking only, I think we can begin to even fathom the idea of healing. And I think anxiety, for your question, anxiety is a thing because of many factors. But one of the things I would say is because people don't feel like they fit in, or they feel difficult to be themselves, maybe. There's not a room to be yourself, because from the time you're born, you have to be a certain kind of child, and you have to do this. Then you have to get this kind of job, you have to get this kind of car, you have to get this kind of house, you have to get this kind of partner, you have to behave like this, you have to dress like this. Women, on top of that, you have to dress like this, you have to marry like this, you have to have children like this, you have to have sex like this. It's never ending, the list. So of course there's going to be anxiety. It would be insane if there wasn't. So it's a huge thing, I think, and I'd love to hear what everyone else has to say about how we tackle this. Yeah.
I'd like to go next. I'd like to add on top of what Shifani was saying. I think actually anxiety is used as a tool to actually get people to conform, right? From the time that you are born, through school, through parenting, corporate structures, university, all of those. The systems are actually created in such a way to cause anxiety, because it's used to make you achieve better, be bigger, be cutthroat, be more successful. All of those are the yardsticks that have been put in place by society, and it's not just that it causes anxiety. I think it was designed to cause anxiety, is what I'm trying to say. Right? But on the other hand, I don't think that anxiety is a new problem, or depression is a new problem. I think it's always been there. It's just that now we are talking more about it. Right? It's the reason why these are things, the movies, we're talking more, there are buzzwords coming out about trauma and how to deal with it and etc., because it's being spoken of, and I think that's a fantastic thing. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword, I believe, because if it's not spoken of constructively, speaking about anxiety and trauma and etc., if it's not done with the right support and the right I'm using the wrong words, because saying it's right also causes bloody anxiety, so pardon my French. But it needs to be in a supportive environment, right? Otherwise it can backfire. And I've seen that happen. I mean, and also there are plenty of gurus and etc. out there who say that they're treating anxiety and depression, who are causing more. Right?
Mm.
So, I mean, it's something that I agree with you, Shifani. It's something that can only be solved by talking and communicating. So yeah, it's my
Yeah.
2 cents on it.
No, I totally agree that creating safe, non-judgmental spaces is so important to even allow people to heal and talk about this. And the other thing I wanted to talk on was that, yes, I feel like anxiety at the core is that I'm not feeling good as I am. And I feel like right from childhood, we are made to conform, like Shifani said, to certain structures, which inherently give you this message that I'm not okay as I am. And so I need to do something to be okay. And I guess that might be the base. And I agree. I think we've all been through it. It's not a new topic, but maybe there's more pressure to perform now or not, but definitely we're talking about it more, and it's becoming more prevalent. So
And I would also like to add that anxiety actually is a form of a self-defense mechanism. So you have a perceived threat, and it's a physiological and psychological response that happens naturally to kind of protect yourself. So obviously we are living in this volatile, complex, very uncertain environment, and it's like Shifani said, we see rising levels of depression, and we see levels of self-harm, suicide, substance abuse going high, and like even what Kumudini said, we don't have psychologically safe places to talk about these issues, and I think the socio-cultural norms in Sri Lanka is one barrier that prevents us from actually kind of talking about it, because we're kind of trained from childhood to not talk about it because it's stigmatized. There's taboo there. So even if one does acknowledge that they do have an issue with anxiety, stress, depression, the likelihood of reaching out is very low. I see that changing now, but like Kumudini said, it's very complex, I would say. And anxiety is just one mechanism where we kind of try to protect ourselves. There's so much more defense mechanisms that we use, and we will come to, I believe, when we talk about the video going forward.
Thank you, Iranjali. So we've had a comment in the chat, which is about the movie being available on YouTube. So the movie is not available on YouTube, but we actually have been allowed to do a screening, which initially was charged for quite a high amount. And we will be telling you about that in the end of the session. We will be talking to you about when we'll be screening it and the thing ahead. Okay, okay, yes. Awesome. So maybe what we can go is we can dig deep into what is trauma. So there's an amazing clip from the film where we really dig deep into what is trauma, and then we can have another.
Before that, can I just jump in and say one small
Yeah,
thing?
sure.
About this anxiety and trauma thing, I both work in the area, and I'm a lifelong sufferer from panic attacks and anxiety attacks and all of that, and it's something that I'm very interested in for obvious reasons. A trend that I've seen on social media over the last year, particularly this COVID period and everything, is that anxiety is being spoken of as a very pedestrian thing. I'm seeing things like, oh, if you're going to be friends with me, you'll know that I respond to text in 1 day or 30 days. And, kind of really trivializing symptoms of anxiety and all of that. And we're doing a lot of that. In some ways, I think it's a little harmful because they're not funny or jokes. There are things that we need to kind of explore within ourselves, but it's also really good that we're talking more and accepting those things as normal as well, so that it's as Kumudini said, double-edged sword. But what's really interesting about what's happening there is that we are more and more speaking about anxiety, But anxiety isn't a thing in its own right. It's a symptom. And we're not exploring the trauma that it comes from. So we are very busy nowadays, almost like glamorizing anxiety and say, talking about these behaviors that come out of anxiety. But we're leaving it at that very superficial level. But we're not kind of saying, okay, it's great to accept that most people in the world suffer from anxiety, that we all have certain behaviors that we bring in as a coping mechanism to protect ourselves and all of that. But we do not glamorize the exploration of that to say, so where did that trauma come from? Why are we behaving like that? And what can we do to heal from that, right? So that's a really interesting split that I'm increasingly seeing, particularly in that social media space, where we are getting increasing amounts of conversation on this. But it will be really good to see kind of things going a little deeper and people actually exploring what's going on. I'll let you get back to what you were saying.
No, I think that's such an important issue. And I think even with anxiety, there's so many levels of anxiety. There's the everyday anxiety, but there's the anxiety which people, need to take pills for to control. So it's such a wide topic in itself. And you're right, like it's a symptom. What's the cause of the anxiety? We're not really looking at that. And I feel like that might be a good segue into the next video, which would be a deep dive, a snippet about what is trauma. So let me play that, and then we can continue the conversation. So I'm going to go back here.
So trauma fundamentally means a disconnection from self. Why do we get disconnected? Because it's too painful to be ourselves. That then becomes a lifelong dynamic. I no longer know how to deal with emotions. It means that in relationships, when I feel a bit hurt, I immediately withdraw, so I don't have to feel those emotions that I don't know what to do with. So there's a disconnect. It also means that when I have gut feelings, I don't follow them. So I create situations of risk for myself. Now, trauma also affects how our brains develop. Certain key brain circuits that have to do with how we react and respond and regulate ourselves, how we handle stress, how we interact with other people, how much empathy and insight that we have, how much compassion we have. These functions of the midfrontal cortex are limited and constricted by trauma because we now know that the brain develops an interaction with the environment. So the brains of traumatized children don't look like the brains of non-traumatized children.
Oopsies. Okay, so that was all I wanted to know. So that's a little deep dive into what trauma is with the film and kind of answering some of the questions. And yeah, Iranjali, I wanted to bring you in with like from the psychological aspect, what is defined as trauma and what does this disconnection actually cause?
So basically, what Dr. Matej said was 100% correct. It is a disconnection, and trauma is how we react. So it's how we perceive the threat and how we kind of react emotionally, right? So we sometimes, if we are subject to a event that we perceive as traumatic, right? So emotionally kind of scarring, then it affects our brain development. So research has clearly suggested that through fMRI scanning right now. And if I was to deep dive into a little bit of psychology when he talks about brain development, he says risky behavior as well. So what happens is, when we are traumatized, right, and when there is disconnection, our prefrontal cortex and the amygdala really shrinks, which means that we cannot make good decisions because rationalization and good decisions are made in your prefrontal cortex. So when there is a disconnect between those two areas, and you can't regulate your emotions, then you're more likely to be very impulsive, take impulsive actions towards something. So you will sabotage yourself in a certain way. So that's why you see substance abuse. So that in order to kind of cope with the trauma itself, you may have the impulsivity to kind of have that drink, take that pill. And that again directly links the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex, because you can't make that decision. So it's you're self-sabotaging yourself as well. And I think it's all about self-regulation. So then how do we help people to come up with better strategies? Because of course this is negative, and it will result in a negative behavior, because the cycle will persist, and it will continue to persist until we actually provide individuals with the right tools and mechanisms to help themselves. As Kumudini said, we need to help individuals to develop their own capacity and skills to kind of make the right decisions. So that's something that, from a psychological standpoint, trauma also means not only disconnect, in my opinion. That's just one way we do things. Another defense mechanism that we use, many actually, are denial, suppression and repression, projection. So these are some of the main ways that individuals actually protect their emotional and I guess physical self, because they perceive anything and everything as a threat. So in order to not kind of get kind of as a defense mechanism to protect themselves, they use all these strategies. So that's my perspective there.
If I could respond to that, Semal,
Sure.
So I think it's very interesting what has been like modern psychology is saying about impulsive behavior that is created by trauma. Now, on the one hand, yes, it does make you impulsive. It makes you prone or vulnerable to certain situations where you feel like, okay, I want to escape. This isn't feeling good. I want to escape. So let me get out. And so therefore we have drugs, we have attempts at taking your life and self-harm and things like that. Smoking cigarettes, at one point I wasn't dealing with stuff. So I was like, oh, get nicotine or whatever. So so I think that's one side of it. On the other hand, I do feel that this idea of impulsiveness, where you recognize that I am feeling uncomfortable and therefore I'm going to get out of this situation. Sometimes I feel if you harness it well, it does work to your advantage. For example, I got out of a lot of very toxic corporate environments. And lots of people said, no, you should stay there for a year. Stay there for a year, stay there for 2 years, stay there for 10 years. That's how you learn. That's how you should do things. And because I feel trauma has, as with all of us, it has reduced my bullshit threshold. So there's like bullshit that is taking place where the bosses are pushing down on you and oppressing you and not allowing you to have a life, not allowing you to be yourself. And there is this sort of resistance. There's a sort of defiance that is there. That if it's a young person, it's often like, oh my God, they're acting out. Let's this thing. So on the one hand, it can go that way. On the other hand, it has guided me out of some really horrible places. And so really, I did that. At that time, I thought, am I crazy to leave such places when people are telling me I should stay? But my gut, I followed my intuition, and it has brought me here where I am working independently and earning fine and doing what I love to do. So there's certain times the spontaneity and impulsiveness has worked in my favor. So I think the trick is, how do we harness, how do we get control, how do we get power over this, as opposed to being overwhelmed and taken away with the tide.
May I add
Yes.
something there? I am extremely impulsive. Okay, so first of all, my psychiatrist told me the same thing that was mentioned on the video, that brain development is altered when trauma is experienced in a child. So I went into depression before the age of 7, and I was told that my brain is thus prone to depression throughout, and I am on antidepressants, and I will probably be on antidepressants for life. I probably would be able to come out of it and stop using it, but because my life is about trauma, because I am constantly working with traumatized people, I'm working with child abuse victims, survivors, sorry, beg your pardon, I hate the word victim. I'm constantly re-traumatizing myself, and it's a decision that I've taken for myself, that I'm all right with it. Until I am doing this work, I will do so, and then afterwards I will invest in myself and pull myself out of it, but that's not now. Anyway, that's one point. The other is that I am impulsive. I am spontaneous, and I have learned to not judge myself about it. This is who I am. I am outspoken. I am a nonconformist. I don't, like you, Shifani, my bullshit levels are extremely low. I do not tolerate nonsense, and I am extremely outspoken about it. And I mean, I might be conceived as damaged and etc., but I like who I am. I like who I am now. And I think that's the more important point, no? Above everything else, that you like being who you are. I'm not gonna waste time second guessing myself and thinking whether I'm right or wrong or black or white or etc. I am who I am, and I think that's where we all need to get to. Yes.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think at the base, it's like you like who you are, right? Because I think what I've realized is what you think about yourself is also what others think about you. If you don't like who you are, then how are others also gonna like you? And I think to Shifani's point, another thing I wanted to bring up was that, yes, for sure, bullshit meter is low, but sometimes what we do is we get triggered when we are trying to not feel something. So what happens is that something happens which reminds us of a traumatic memory or a pattern, and instead of dealing with it or like actually living through it, we either react or we shut down or we get distracted into one of the very easy ways to get distracted, or get or smoke a cigarette or whatever it is, but we are trying to avoid the feeling generally. And I think one of the powerful things which I saw through the film was that when you actually allow that feeling and you actually go through that feeling, you realize that it's not that bad, but you are reacting from that child space who wasn't able to do anything. And so you feel like it will be too painful for you to feel, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it's fear also, like you carry fear in your body, and the fear is what causes the obstacles. I think the fear is what keeps you in avoidance. Fear is what keeps you from looking at yourself or trying things or asking for help. So I think fear is, at the root of this, the obstacle of getting better.
Yeah, of actually seeing that trauma.
One more point I would like to add there. When it comes to, like I said, impulsivity, all good, like to be yourself, and again, mindfulness plays a very big role there. But there is a tendency another self-defense mechanism, if you will, is in line with the next question when it comes to generational trauma, right? Is that we tend to be impulsive and we have displacement or displaced aggression. So again, we see, and especially after COVID, we've seen rising levels of domestic violence and child abuse. Now, what happens is individuals who have been traumatized, right, when they can't take their frustrations or self-regulate themselves, what they do is they're very impulsive and they are aggressive towards their children or their wife. So you see a lot of, and myself and my co-founder, we have been working with a legal firm, a charitable organization that have been working with in survivors of gender-based violence. So you see a lot of individuals who have been traumatized themselves taking their aggression out on women and children. And it's been the levels have skyrocketed, and to the point where, you know, there aren't many safe houses where we can actually take these individuals to. So that's another kind of major thing that's actually taking place in our society as we speak.
Yeah, and I love that you said mindfulness. I think just becoming self-aware is such a key thing. Like, what am I actually doing? How is my body feeling now that I'm anxious? And what exactly caused, like, I'm getting into that now, like I'm on the phone and I'm starting to feel nauseous. Okay, respect it. Don't sit there and like, nauseous now. Like, okay, go to the garden, sit down. Maybe you need to have the call there. Maybe you need some food. Like, actually responding to what's happening in your body can, I think, help also.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And even like just asking yourself, okay, I'm feeling anxious. What happened? What made me feel anxious? Because sometimes it's not very clear, but then when you track back and you were like, okay, this comment triggered anxiety in me. Why did that comment trigger anxiety in me? Do I actually think that about myself? Or you know, is there something for me to work through in that? I feel like that's been quite helpful for me. So we've had, so Natasha has raised her hand. Natasha, is there a question you would like to ask?
Yes, Semal.
Hi.
I hope everybody can hear me. Hi.
Hi.
So I want to direct this towards Iranjali, because you were talking about trauma and how we deal with it and the impulsiveness. I wonder, from your practice previously, do you notice there's a relationship with codependency and how people manage this? Yeah.
Yes, there is. So again, I would like to bring in the social strata levels, right? So you see a lot of codependency amongst individuals who are dependent on their husbands. So even if they're educated, right? So if you take Sri Lanka as a country, women are as educated as men, right? However, they choose to, it's a very patriarchal society, right? So women, the role is still perceived that a woman should be at home, taking care of the child and, you know, do the cooking, right? Now, over time, if one gets comfortable with this, right, it's a natural tendency to be dependent. So a lot of individuals, when they do know and they are aware of the violence that's taking place, the abuse that's taking place, it's very difficult for them to make that decision to actually get themselves out of it. So Stockholm syndrome, but also because they're also afraid of how they're being perceived by society, but more so, like you mentioned about the dependency, because see, time has elapsed. They have a child, probably many children, and they have no income because they've been dependent on their husband, who is the abuser, right? So what we are trying to do is provide them with the opportunities to come up with their own income stream. That's being, we're building that so that then, we're actually taking that barrier away so that they can be confident enough to actually leave, because not only are they dependent on their husband, but what we've noticed is they're being abused not only by the husband's father, mother, sister, and it's a lot of trauma to handle, not only for the person, the woman, but for the lady, but even for the children, right? So that will bring Semal to the generational, and Niki, like Niki said, the generational trauma kind of question there. Good question, Natasha. Thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you so much for giving the opportunity to ask the question. And it's, I just want to say, it's really humbling and empowering to be in the presence of this lady. So thank you.
Hi, you're most welcome.
Can I just add to something what Iranjali just said? My name is Soraya.
Sure.
Well, I think I understand you are absolutely correct, Iranjali, in staying independent for a husband. When you are working, then there's also called emotional abuse, and they make you feel that you're not good enough. So even if you're really good enough, you're really better than anybody else. At some point in time, you lose confidence, and you tell yourself you're really not good enough. And you come to a point where you don't even trust your own thought. You see, so getting out of that is very difficult, unless of course you take an instant thinking and 360-degree turn. You have to do it. If you keep doing it, postponing it, it will never happen. You just need to take the action move, chop it. Because you've been abused, pushed down so much. To think that you're not good enough is, oh my gosh, it's terrible. And when you come out of it and you really look at it from the other side of the coin, you realize, oh my God, what have I been doing all my life? To get to that space is where we really need to help a lot of people. Correct. And they suffer in silence, trust me.
So there have been, over the past 2 years, there have been some brave ladies, I would say, who've made the jump, like you said, and they went with their instincts. It was a tough time. It was a tough journey for them, and it was a tough journey for all of us to kind of give them that support, the psychosocial support they needed to constantly reassure them that they're going to be okay, and they will find a way. They do find a way forward, but like Soraya said, it's that initial self-doubt you have when you're constantly said you're not good enough or you can't do something. It's very difficult for the person to take that plunge, and especially if you have been dependent for so long. So again, we as a community need to highlight the fact that there are opportunities out there. There are opportunities, and we can create opportunities for women, even men. I mean, I cannot say that this doesn't happen to men. It does happen, right? But obviously, it's more amongst women. So again, brilliant question, Soraya. Thank you so much. This is one of the biggest challenges that we face when helping survivors of domestic abuse and violence.
If I could also hop in. You go ahead, Yasha. Yeah,
I'll be very quick.
Both
as a survivor of domestic abuse, and now I work to support women to get out. Also, I think a lot of us do in this group. Something that I see here in the women that I supported to get out of this situation is that a lot of, it was the same with my situation when I was, 7 years ago when I was coming out of my marriage. That actually sometimes the women are actually the financially stronger ones. We are the breadwinners. So in my personal situation, in a 12-year relationship for 10 years, I was the sole earner. My ex-husband didn't earn a penny. I'm currently supporting a lady. She's going to run in a week. I'm very excited for her. She's the earner. She's the one with the stable job while the husband's a three-wheeler driver. There are a lot of ladies out there who are financially independent, if we can say it like that. But that dependency for them and for myself at that time is created not necessarily from the financial dependence, but even with the money, even though we are the ones bringing it in, when we bring in that money, it's not considered in that same way, right? So whatever, it's not just about the finances, but whatever the women bring into the scenario is never really considered. Whatever the woman brings in is group, it's for the family. But whatever the man brings in tends to be for the man, right? So that causes a dependency, even if the women are actually in a stronger position in terms of being able to go off and survive by themselves. And unlocking that, like this particular lady that I mean, a lot of the ladies I've supported over the years, this has been a recurring theme. It's a lot to do with how we see ourselves. It's a lot to do with how we go. Actually, I'm allowed to take that whole pot and go because it's my pot and I'm allowed to do what I want with it. But that kind of thinking is missing, right? And that really is for me, that really causes this codependency thing to and the delay in getting out of domestic abuse and kind of toxic situations. It's very complex. It's very complex. I'll let you get on with what you were saying.
Yeah. Thank
I'm going
you.
to add one thing.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I
Go ahead.
most of my things. I have to say, look, I was traumatized when my first husband left me with a 2.5-year-old child who had to support by myself. However, I have to say that I am me today because of that. I am in no way condoning what the heck he did. He was an idiot. But I love the fact that I became financially free, independent, that I became accountable only to myself, that I'm able to make my own decisions. And no matter what happens now, because I've been in a second marriage and now I'm in another relationship and all of that, but still, I love the fact that the lessons I learned from it, I love. You know, I think you need to get to that point where we celebrate the lessons we learned and how much it brings, how much positivity it brings to us, and not necessarily leave the bad, but learn from the bad. You know, sorry, that was 2 cents. I shall go back to being silent now.
It makes so much sense, yeah. And I would say that just that in the film also, this guy, the filmmaker, was saying that it is our job as human beings to learn from our suffering. That's what he said in what we saw. So that's so true. And there's so many lessons. And what I wanted to say earlier was what something Soraya brought up, which is about being told and feeling terrible about yourself. And I think as a child, you can't discern. If your parents make you feel a certain way, then you feel a certain way. But then as an adult, then there has to be a process of unlearning all of these things that we've learned about ourselves and identifying false beliefs about ourselves. Like, am I really shit at this? Am I really like a flake? Am I really this? Like, question it, analyze it, dissect it, challenge your own beliefs about yourself, because it's all internal. It's because you believe that you are lesser than, or you believe that you're not worthy of love, or you're not worthy of whatever it is that you want, that keeps you from actually trying to go out and things like that. So if we don't do that self-care thing and this self-awareness thing, then I don't think we can actually navigate and function. And Yasodhara was talking about this male-female thing, and I think that's just very important. This gender being a construct that traps people and causes anxiety, causes a lack of possibilities, lack of options. Okay, either I am a like nice little girl wearing flowers in my hair and serving tea to my husband, or I'm a total prostitute. Okay, and I don't even use that word usually, but like this, these are the words that are used by people, like, that you're either the Madonna or the whore. And this is so old. It's old as time itself. And we have to
Or the
become
diva.
aware. Yes. And also men.
I am
Men, you're either the ponnaya or you're the macho man. So these are the constructs that are keeping people like freaking in a death trap, and you can't move out of it. And that's also causing dysfunction in relationships, I think.
I would also add the importance of taking the situational, the context, the contextual aspect of it, because some of them are really aggressive, these perpetrators, to the point where you can question, do all that and work on your inner self whilst you're out of it. Not to depending on the situation, because we've had a lot of experiences where the perpetrators, would even have threats on us. So it's very important, if to build the confidence and work on your inner self when you're out of the situation, and not go to kind of fight or argue, depending on the context, because that could in itself be very, very dangerous. So just so that for our viewers to be cautious, and when you do tend to make a decision, do it in a very, very astute way, I would say.
And I'm sorry, I'm outside and I don't know whether I keep butting, but I just want to say, Yasodhara, you said you went out after 12 years. I took 26 years and I moved out at 50. Right. So it was a, I don't know, I can't even imagine how I did it or what I did, but it's just a thought, one single thought in a moment. This is it, enough is enough. I switched in a moment. I switched now, and at 50, what could it have? Female at 50. So I was actually asking myself, I said, what 50 is the number? So I told myself, and then I got everything that came along with the relationship, hardships, cancer, you name it, everything that came along with the decision. But still I chose to move on. Because first I realized my life is also of value, which I never knew. I also need to look after my life, which is very of value. So if I don't do it, who's going to do it for me? That was my thought. So like Kumudini said, all the good things all the bad things are good things that are happening, fine. I'm taking them as my lessons learned. They're all indicators to me. Nothing is on my shoulder. Everything is as a footpath. Everything is a footpath. I don't take anything on my shoulders. I take it, I accept it, look at it, and they become all footpaths. And then I walk on it. I don't take anything on my shoulders anymore. These are hard things that we have learned, and it has come a long way. It's come a long way. I'm so grateful.
Sorry.
I'm so grateful. Actually, I'm really grateful for this particular opening, because I've been waiting for a space like this to actually say what I want to say. But unfortunately, everything is structured. When you have a conversation, I love the way Kumudini is talking. It just talks. That's what I want, people to talk. So everything is usually structured, and you have to think twice before you say, because either you're going to offend the talker. But here I don't have to do it, because I'm really sharing, and I think me sharing would actually be helpful to someone. And I'm telling you, I have gone to the gamut. Believe me, I've gone to the gamut, and my life is good. I don't operate in fear anymore. It's a dark space. I love to work with hope, the best space of light. So I think everybody can do it. I believe very strongly everybody can do it. Just needs some support.
That's a very important point, that everybody can do it, because it's something that I have to work very hard to get across to my clients sometimes, because there is often this perception that, oh, you've done it because you've had such and such advantages, or you are of this kind of personality, or you have these kind of tools. But we don't all have to do these things the same way, because we're humans and we are so beautifully diverse, and different things work for different people. But every single person out there, almost 8 billion of us, I just saw the stats the other day, 7.9 billion now we are. Every single one of us can break free. Every single one of us, regardless of our personality, our level of education, our privileges, or whatever our background, whatever, we can all do it. And we will need support, we will need a community around us, or whatever the safety nets we need. But at the same time, it's a simple switch in us. It's a decision to, as Soraya said, to realize that our life has value on its own. It has value, not because we are, partners, parents, our job titles, our bank accounts, the car we drive, whatever the things that we tell ourselves is what makes us valued. We are valued and we are valuable without all of those things. And that switch is the switch that everybody needs to flick. And that's very, very difficult. And it's something, it's something I'm very passionate about. I talk to my clients about all the time. So thank you so much for that, Soraya. I'm really glad you're in the place that you're in right now. It's always great to connect with people who got to the other side. There's more of us on this side then.
Yay. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Soraya. That was such a powerful sharing. And yeah, and thanks, Yasodhara. Niki, I know you were gonna say something.
Yeah, I
want
just want
Niki to speak.
Oh, I just wanted to say around, this idea that anxiety, if you look at statistics, it seems to affect women more. And that's partly because women also, come out about it or look for self-care or look for help more than men. But from what we've been discussing, this is a lot of these reasons as to why codependency, all of this is probably the reasons as to why. But another reason I wanted to add is this idea of being perfect, this pressure to be perfect, and everyone's nodding. And I see that a lot in my health coaching clients as well. And that seems to be the biggest issue for their anxiety. Is that worry of the future, is that worry of multitasking, and am I doing it all, really well, and that people are judging me. And I think, this society here is obviously quite judgmental, let's say. So, this area is there. So, I think, there's this a great book by Alice Domar, a Harvard psychologist, called Be Happy, without being perfect. And if anyone is suffering from this perfection issue, then please read it. I found it really helpful myself. So if anyone wants to respond to that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I was actually going to bring in that point myself around perfection, and also suggesting the work of Brené Brown. She does a lot of work around perfection, and actually the gift of our imperfection. That's the title of her book. And what I realized when we talk about this whole idea of am I good enough? Right from childhood, you're said you're a good girl if you do certain things, or a bad girl if you do certain things. Especially for women, they're thought they should be perfect. They should look perfect. They should be the perfect mothers, the perfect wives. Then they should also be successful in the, in the career world. So we put on all these things and we think that we're superwoman. But at the end of the day, we're not perfect, and no one's perfect. But that does not have to define whether we are worthy or not. We are worthy just as we are. We don't have to do anything specific to be worthy. And this was a huge learning for me. I've been working with a master, and I used to think that only if I create a certain level of impact am I worthy, or only if I make a certain amount of money am I worthy. But the truth is that each one of us are born worthy. Like Yasodhara said, all 8 million of us are worthy, and we have to take that switch to be like, no, I deserve to live a life where I feel worthy, where I feel comfortable in my skin, because nobody else is going to tell you that. Nobody else is going to tell you that you're perfect as you are. Because why do we put each other down, or why do we judge each other? Because we want them to do something the way we want we want them to do what we want them to do, right? You know, we want them to fit in a box because that makes it easier for us. The same way with our parents, like they want us to, like, I know being a parent myself, it's really hard. Sometimes you just want your kids to, you know, do the thing you want them to do. So you're like, okay, you know, if you do this, you're good. If you don't do this, you're bad. But I'm trying to control you, but what I'm doing in that is I'm making you believe that you're not worthy as you are. You need to be something to be worthy. And I think that's what I've realized is the base of so much of this thing that we're talking about. So
I have a thing to add. Okay.
Okay.
So this is going to sound very odd and horrible, right? But I recently realized that so I was sexually abused as a child from the age of 3 till I was 7, 8. Okay, so I realized, because now I am facing the memories without judging myself, yeah, and I realized that first, let me put a caveat out here and a disclaimer that child abuse is wrong, and I am working very hard to reduce the rates of child abuse, and especially child sexual abuse in Sri Lanka, because it's bad. But having said that, I have to say that wrong words, Kumu. The pedophile who abused me didn't actually cause me pain. He actually caused me a lot of pleasure, and I climaxed as a child. So when he called, I went because I liked how he made me feel. Right? Now, I am not putting a positive spin on this. I'm just saying it the way it was. I actually started feeling bad about myself when school, the Bible, my mom, people around me, etc., reinforced the idea in me that I am a bad person because of what I'm experiencing physically. That is when it started spiraling downwards, and I started feeling suicidal and etc. I honestly, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's not the same experience that every child has, but one, I am really glad that I am strong enough now to face those memories without the shame and the, the horror and the guilt and etc. that came along. And it took me, good grief, almost 40 years to come out of it. But I am happy that I am out of it, and I can face those memories without the bad feelings. And the thing that I am fighting against now is social conditioning. And a lot of the pressure that we face as people, as individuals and etc. is because of social conditioning, whether implied or implicit or, directly told to us or indirectly, whatever. Why on earth we are living our lives according to other people's set standards, I don't know. And I don't like it.
Agree 100%. That's why I said everything's socially constructed. A lot of individuals, even under the survivors, under domestic violence, does not leave because they perceive, that, they want to save face, or they don't want to be perceived as, bad by society. And they're actually kind of putting themselves in danger and their children in danger as well. So this socially constructed idea of, you get married, so you stay married, is actually harmful. And totally agree with Kumudini. And even as where authorities are concerned, when there's a protocol, when you report it, you're supposed to report it and then, protect the person, but they actually apparently send you back to the home saying, your family is going to be perceived in such a way that's not going to be good. So you're essentially telling a victim to go back to a household that is where there's violence. So this needs to change.
So if I could just jump in, first of all, Kumu, I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that. Like, I want to give you a hug. And I've experienced this story before because we had the child abuse episode on Shanuki and my talk show, Talk About Taboos, and firsthand I heard the entire thing, and it was so moving and so visceral. And that's life, you know, life is like that. And I think that, yeah, I completely resonate with everything that you said, that this people crushing you into being like, this is how you should feel about everything. This is how you should behave at all times. And we are way more fascist as a society than we think. Just because we don't have a dictator technically doesn't mean that we are not oppressing people the same way, I think. It's still the same principle that's running. And about perfection, which Niki was saying, I think, and Semal, like perfection, I think it comes from you're either this or that. You're either perfect or imperfect. You're either really good at work or you're really good at being a housewife. So there's no room allowed for gray area. There's no room allowed for a third option, fourth option, fifth option. There's usually just 2 options or 3 options max. So I think if we can open out and be like, which is something I learned, like I thought I was shit at cooking because I am an outgoing, you know, extroverted, like, you know, tomboy type. So I was trained to think, if you are that type of woman, then you're not going to be good at cooking. You're not going to be good with children. You're not going to be kind and sweet and stuff because you're either this or that. And now, because I've had the space to explore who I am outside the strict binaries that oppress everyone across the board, because humans are not this or that. So there's a lot of gray area, lot of fluidity, and lot of movement, lot of change. Every day we're changing. And only later I was like, damn, I'm really good at cooking. Like during the pandemic, I started my own cooking thing. And then I figured that I'm good with like my niece. I'm an amazing aunt. And at the same time, I love to go to the boardroom and you know, you can be more than 1 or 2 things. And that's very important that we should teach our kids and teach women also, that you don't have to be just this or that.
Just a quick
I'm
thing.
just going to jump in and talk a little bit about what Kumudini said. As a survivor of childhood sexual abuse myself also, Kumu, my experience was also very similar in the sense that the physical sexual abuse itself didn't somehow leave as much of a lasting scar or trauma as the ensuing reaction from family, from community, from religion, from being told this and that. And, you know, I was taken to all kinds of exorcisms and pujas and all kinds of complete garbage, and all aimed at making me good because I was so bad. And that stuff is what really affected or left the lasting impact. I'm choking up talking about it now. So I think there's a lot in that space, and I think that goes into other types of trauma, not just sexual abuse or childhood sexual abuse. I think it goes into any kind of trauma, that there's the traumatic incident itself, or a series of incidents as it may be for certain people, but it's also how we then look at those people, the survivors, how we treat them, how we talk to them. And when I've gone to these, I don't know what to call them, like these like orphanage type places where a lot of these girls are kept now here, for them, when they meet somebody like me, who looks like me, speaks like me, works like me, who's, you know, achieved things that I have, they can't compute that I can also be a survivor, because the language, the context around what it means to survive these things or to survive trauma, the context has been given to them is of a broken person, a bad person, a dirty person, a used person, a ruined person, somebody deserving of charity and pity, somebody who needs
handouts in order to make some small thing of themselves because they're not capable of big success or happiness or any of the big things, right? So when I walk into that room and I don't conform to that vision, it's a shock. And it's a shock that I've had to, over the times that I've done these workshops or, when I've had those interactions, that I come to understand that actually it's that also that we really need to change, this kind of language around survivors and how we treat them and how we look at them, because how they see themselves. And I think this goes back to why people don't want to come forward, why people don't want to come out of those situations, is because once they come out of those situations, the only future that they can see for themselves is a traumatized person, a survivor of whatever it is they survived, and not as a whole person where that survival, that experience is a small part of that experience of their life and their identity. It just becomes the whole thing, right? And so that's something
That's
also
who you are. Absolutely. I honestly believe, looking back, that I was traumatized far worse by society's and society's expectations of me than the actual abuse that I got, which is horrible. For God's sake. So, sorry, I shall go back to, sorry, Asho, I'll go back to being.
No, don't apologize. I think that's amazing what you said.
I was also thinking, as long as we have the straw thinking, straw thinking, where you look through the end of a straw, society always looks, the look of society is through always a straw. You will never find an open thinking where you can just go and just be yourself. But everybody will look through a straw. So what you see at the end of the straw is your own truth, right? So as long as you have this straw effect, it'll be very difficult for us to go into society and break their way of thinking and stuff like that. And I truly understand your soul situation, this is true, because you see, sometimes they say coming out of the situation and you have to face the society as a result of your coming out is sometimes more traumatic than being in it. So sometimes I know people, believe me, I do know people who prefer to stay in a difficult situation because they feel so insecure. They don't know how to handle themselves coming out of that. So for them, imagine if they take somebody who comes at 40 or 45, imagine having to start life again after 45, and they don't know how to do it. So they say, what to do with this? I will find my truth within the life. That's what they live on. And like most cases, see, the experience is similar. If you really look at it, sometimes, most often, the experience is similar, but the emotion behind each experience is different. So I have had the need to talk to so many people. So when I talk to people, I take the experience, but I don't treat them with my emotions. And what I felt at that time is for me and what I felt. But I don't use my emotion to tackle that person's experience, which is 100% similar to what I may have gone through. So advice, like Kumu said at the very initial stage, advising people also is very important, because when you go back and you advise them with your emotion, which may not be the same for them, we might put them into, it happened to me, and I realized it. Thankfully, I realized it. I stepped back. I took a nice look at myself and looked at everything that's going around, and I was able to come out of it, because I realized that I was going deeper into it, because that person was bringing out a lot of hatred into her advising was doing, which I was not. I couldn't digest it. I don't hate anybody. By nature, I'm like that. I would prefer even the worst of enemies to say with a lot of love, thank you very much, and yes, I'm moving forward. You not because you need to be good, but I need to move forward. Thank you very much, and I move. That's the way I would look at it. So it's very, very also important to see how, when you advise, I think I don't know, you guys will be doing it more often than me, but I have always wondered that at some point, then you be very careful in how you say what you say to the person you are actually saying it, who's actually going through it.
So Raya, you're 100% correct. I just wanted to tell you that.
Beg your pardon, sorry.
Thank you.
My phone is at like 5% and is going to die, and I'm on the road from Chilao, so I will most probably drop out from the conversation. I apologize. Thank you very much in advance. I love you all. Mwah. If I disappear, it's because
Bye,
things have happened.
Kumu.
Bye.
Thank you for your
Awesome. See you.
Hi. I'd like to add up to something that I just picked up. Hi, I'm Maheshia. So according to how the conversation was directed, so it is true that the community around us and the society, how they judge us, and the worry of being judged by the society really does affect our way of life and our way of sharing, because even our whole lifestyle could be affected by that. And when I think of what Niki said about perfectionism, when we look at social media, they are kind of like glamorizing overworking and high productivity. And if a person is not doing such a thing, they would be feeling like, as if, am I doing my best? Should I be doing something more? Or is there something wrong with me because I'm not doing my best? I'm not being very productive. So this also kind of creates a very stressful situation for a person. With myself, actually, I'm not a very productive person when it comes to getting work done. I like to take my time and get things done. Within a day, I would like to get 2 or 3 tasks done, and I don't stress about getting all of it done within one day. So when I look at all of those high productivity, and you can do this within 24 hours, and all of these stress on productivity, one could really feel like less worthy or less in line with their idea of success. So what I agree that we should really try not to be bothered by what the society points out as standards, or like this is the way you should do it. And we should really look inwards at ourselves and try to find a balance within ourselves, so that we know that, okay, this is what I should be doing, not just because of what others think or what others say. This is what I should be doing right now for my piece, for my task to get done. So I believe that rather than bothering about what the society might say, or what how my actions would affect the society, I should more focus on how my actions would direct me towards my goals, or how it will help me to feel at ease. So that is what I wanted to add, actually, that it will be so helpful if we can really get this society to think in an open-minded way, so that everybody can just be themselves without being feared of being judged.
Yeah.
So yes.
Thanks. Okay.
Could
Go
I,
for it.
do
Shall
you
I?
want that?
Okay.
Or do you want it? Who wants to jump in? You can go.
I'm just going
okay.
to say something very quick to Maheshi, right?
Sure. Sure.
Just, I love your point. I think what you're saying about that pressure we feel because social media is not a new thing in terms of what we're seeing on social media. Is what we used to see off social media when it didn't exist. It was the same pressures that we saw before, but now we are seeing it kind of amplified, and we have more access to it because it's all day on our phone. But actually, one of the best ways to combat that is combat it ourselves. Post about, if you increase the amount that you post about what productivity means to you and how that might look different to what you might see elsewhere, then it starts to create a ripple effect, because it starts to create content out there, because your content is also content, right? So just now this week, I broke a big taboo, because I'm 6 weeks pregnant currently, and I announced it on my social media at 6 weeks, bang on 6 weeks, which we are always as women encouraged to hold off till 3 months. because, in case something goes wrong and you don't want to share that. Why shouldn't we? There are so many people out there suffering from, particularly fertility-related trauma, and who are made to suffer in silence because these are not things that we share about. So I posted at 6 weeks because no matter what happens, I will be sharing, good or bad, both I'll be sharing, because we can kind of take control ourselves. And it might be a little drop in the ocean, but as long as we start that and we start changing and realizing that we are also society, that if we want to see change, that we can actually make that change now because of social media and the democracy that is brought to us. So it kind of empowers us to take action and kind of be the change. What's that Michael Jackson song, right? That whole be I don't know the quote. Whoever knows the quote, please tell me that Michael Jackson quote about, being the change that you're supposed to be.
Yes,
that is it. Man in the mirror.
The man in the mirror. Yes, correct.
Yeah. So
it allows us to do that now. If I could just
go for it.
Very shortly. Just Maheshi was saying about the hyper functionality, and I think especially as women, we push even harder if we have career people. We are like, because you have more to prove, because there's even more doubt about you. So you have to be like on the ball, and keep going. And I think we have to recognize that there's value. There's also value in doing nothing. There's also value in stopping. Today I'm doing nothing. I'm not going to touch my phone. I'm not going to pick up the meeting calls, whatever. I want to chill on the sofa, do nothing. I'm going to freaking watch Netflix or eat a pizza and just stare at the ceiling. There's value in giving your brain and your body and your mind, everything a rest. And there's value in rest, and there's value in silence. I think these are things that we are not really incorporating. Go ahead, Semal.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say is that, yes, I feel like society has had its issues for many, many years, but there is a part of us which also agrees to be affected by what society thinks. So there is a part of us that wants to be known or have a good image in society, or wants to conform to it, or wants to be productive in the terms of society. And I feel like it is very empowering to take that narrative within, because even for me, I think for at least 10 years of my life, I tried everything to be successful, and I was successful in certain ways, but it's a never ending game. Like the more you have, the more you want to achieve, the more you find others who are doing it better than you. And not until you decide to create your own parameters for success and productivity does it start to change. I think society is going to be society, but we need to first change the way we look at ourselves, we measure ourselves, not feeling guilty about taking a day off because that's what you need. So how do we bring more love to ourselves? I think that has to be the first step. And then actually people start looking at us differently, things start to change. But the first step I've realized is always the one which you have with yourself, and then also like becoming conscious of if there's anxiety about productivity, then that's a reason to look in and see what belief are you kind of buying into, and do you want to buy into that belief or not? So this has been a super, super productive discussion. I know that Natasha has a hand raised. We had a few more topics that I wanted to discuss, but I feel like if we go into those, then we'll probably be here till 6. So yeah. So there are couple of things I wanted to just, so if you want to have another discussion like this on other themes from the film, please let us know either on Facebook or on message or something like that, and we can organize another discussion. Another great news that I have is that we will be doing a community screening for the film on the 20th of November. That's in 2 weeks on Saturday, where we can view the whole film. We are planning to do it as a physical screening, and also the idea is, we've not organized it yet, but the idea is to have maybe some of us present there, so that even if there are certain triggers that happen to you while you watch the film, you have someone to talk to. And we will have like sharing sessions at the end of the film where you can just talk about whatever you're going through. So we have that coming up in 2 weeks if you're interested in coming. So we'll have a limited screening for maybe 20 people is what we're thinking. So if you want to, we definitely will have it'll be prioritized for the people who attended this session today. So please let us know. And yeah, I know that Natasha has her hand raised. Natasha, would you like to jump in and share your thoughts?
Yeah, but if you're short for time, it's okay.
No, but you're here now. You might as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
go for it. Yeah.
Thanks. So a couple of things, but I'll try to make it as quick as possible. One thing I think Yasodhara said, I really appreciate. I think Mahesh brought it up about like how do we change this, and Yasho was saying like, we be the change. And Yasho, all congratulations, and hope everything goes really smoothly for the rest of your time to come with the baby. And that's what it is. I think like we've got to be like, okay, even if people are going to be like, this is not how it's supposed to be, you're actually supposed to be sad. I was made homeless during a pandemic, and people are like, how are you like smiling like this? I'm like, because I really like who I am now. And I had forgotten to love that part while I was going through that, difficult situation. But I wish Kumudini was here. Like what she said really resonated in the sense that it's the hard parts that really make us who you are. For me, this year has been like the most difficult year in my entire life combined. Like I feel like the trauma that someone carries an entire lifetime was like really beautifully combined into this like 1 year for me. But this also has been the most amount of self-growth, the most I love myself. And like, it has been terribly hard work, but that's what I really think, like you can really use these challenges as a beautiful stepping stone. And for me, like one of like the most key parts about this learning process and working through the trauma of the breaking down of the whole relationship and all of that, like the key part for me was I didn't want to grow old hating someone I adored for 10 years of my life. Right. And I think it's so easy to paint someone black and white, like this happened, oh my God, like this is what it is. But it also helps to look at the situation like, okay, this is also another human being with all kind of, facets to being human, with that beautiful light we all carry within. 7.9, someone was saying, we all have that light within. So just in the same way this other person did too. But for the trauma that he or she was carrying, that was not dealt with, is how it came across and how that guided those activities around. And like, I think codependent behaviors on both parts really made things much worse, that we didn't have the necessary support and strength to work through what had to be worked through. And it ended up being like this very ungraceful departure of something that, could have been whatever. But the point is, now that I am here, yeah, I was homeless, but I could also play the victim card, which I did for a really long time. Oh no, poor me, right? And I think that's like a very natural human place that we all want to go, because there's a comfort in being helpless, in not taking responsibility. But again, going back to what Kumudini said, I wish she was still here. Going back to what she said, we've got to buckle up and be like, yeah, take responsibility for what happened. True. This is my situation now. What do I do from this point onwards? And as Soraya said, you've got to find that switch inside. And once that switch happens, they're like, okay, what do I do now? Get the support you need to work through. So I found this amazing counselor. She's a psychologist. She supported me pro bono for the longest time, and she's been such a rock for me. And for me to have that support, because I obviously couldn't, like, finances were really, 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 really tough, because I was in this marriage where my husband was a breadwinner, and then I'm like, where am I going to, like, put the next meal? How am I going to make the next meal work kind of thing? I was like living on Maggie and all of those things. But it all comes back down to, how do I move forward, not hating? Right? And it doesn't mean I justify the abuse or the violence or the difficult traumas within that institution. Of course not. But it also means you can look at that in a bit more compassionate way. Okay, fine, whatever happened, happened. But now, how do I create my boundaries? Getting the support I need, right? So maybe it's getting legal support, maybe it's getting psychological support, creating your boundaries to make sure that doesn't happen again. And then you come to a safe, a strong space, and also work through the emotional part of it. Because for me, this is my personal thing. That was like the key thing for me. Like, I did not want to live my life in hatred, right? Because I know how hate can eat into you. You feel sick about something, you throw up and it's over. But hatred is something that really eats into you. And I was very, very sure this is the one thing I don't want to happen. Yes, what he did is terrible, like how things happen. Yes, 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 yes. But I can, find that strength within. And that's what it is. Like, it's that finding that power inside. You're like, all right, like I absolutely got this. It's tough as hell. But there is still that light and strength within me that I can put one foot forward and the next one appears. And it really has been like that. When you find that switch inside, like the universe kind of opens out with like support. That's how my psychologist came to, like, everybody has just really paved my path. And I have come to a point where now, like, so recently I took up like a cup like that is both our features. It used to be my, morning teacup sort of thing. And I couldn't use it like for the longest time because it had his face on it. It was like heartbreaking. And now I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, it's for me, it's so healing to know that I can look at this and be like, yeah, that moment was a really cool moment. Just like when we were in Candy and we had good times. Yes. I did adore. Yes, of course. But now that is not who is next to me. That is not the reality of this point. What am I in this point? How do I put the next step forward? So for me, that was massive. And like my practice in, so I do now, after this, I now do guided healing meditation sessions for people going through similar situations. And it's not about like, may everybody be in like, spread metta, like, forget about it and move on. It isn't like that. It isn't like that. It's about working through the constructs. So like inner child wounds, like things my like, parents used to say to me, or like what I heard while I was growing up, like all those insecurities were like really nice, like bundled up into one, and just like, it was like volcano burst, and I had to like deal with those one by one, and I did. So that spiritual component of it also really supports to, I think, go forth, like for now. And I'm like, yeah, it was really tough, but I'm so grateful for everything that turned out, because I am such a strong person. And this also weirdly is the year that I love myself the most. So that's for me, like, that's like massive. Like, I always feel like, am I good enough? Am I that enough? Am I this enough? Like, all kinds of things. But now I'm just like, it is actually like a wonderful day outside. And I have like, people reaching out to me for support because they want to, go through similar situations and all of that. And it's amazing. So like when I came across this platform, like it's amazing. When I only heard a little bit about what each of you all do, but I mean, bless your heart. It's amazing what you do for like other women. And I, wish you all the very best and luck to keep going your path. And yeah, it's, I'm just so grateful. Like that's what I said earlier. Like it's really empowering to be here among these women. It's also humbling, like in like how far you have gone in your path. So yeah, I just want to say that thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And you're glowing, and totally you can really see that you really love yourself and you're owning yourself. And it's so beautiful to see that. And so beautiful that last year was one of the hardest years and you're already at this space now. So thank you. That was really beautiful. The beautiful way for us to end the conversation. Any parting notes, any parting thoughts anyone would like to share?
I would just like to say I'm so happy that everyone participated, like people outside the panel as well. And I think Semal, this is already the seminal work for your inner reset healing circles, workshops, because we are creating a vibe, you're creating a space where people feel like, oh, finally I can come here and I can rest my head, I can share my story. Like, when all these other spaces are not allowing that room. And so we're creating an alternate space. And I think that's such important work that we're doing. We couldn't do it without every single person who's in this room right now. Thank
And
you.
I just wanted to say to Maheshi, I think it was, she's not here at the moment, but if she watches this again, there's a saying that goes, don't compare yourself to others. Like your chapter could be like very different from another person's chapter. And that's very, very important to not compare yourself with others. You know, who knows? Yours could be a whole new different novel, book. You don't have to be in the same chapter as everyone else. Do your own thing, follow your own dreams with your own strengths. So that's all. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. I totally agree. I think even if you try to be another person, you can't really. You can only really be yourself. So go for that. And yes, totally, Shifani. I actually, a big thank you to everyone who came and joined into the discussion and how beautifully it flowed. And I think for me, yeah, the idea was to just create this safe space for everyone to come and share and, you know, open up. And thank you for all the beautiful women, Shifani, Yasodhara, Iranjali, Kumudini, Niki, and Maheshi, Soraya, Natasha, everyone who took part. I think by talking, so much more gets released and solved and shared, and you know, it's just such a beautiful and yes, we will be having more of these. As Shifani said, we would love to co-create that. Yashodhara, are you still in the call? Yes, you are.
I have managed to survive. I did not think I'd manage.
Yeah.
Because I
Yay.
and I only sat up for this, and I didn't think I'd last 2 hours, but I'm so happy I think this is the longest I've been sitting up for the entire last week. So
oh my God, thank you so much.
Happy that I made it. Amazing discussion. Thank you to Semal and Alvin and HomeTree co-working for sorting this out. I think I can't remember now who said it, but I think it was Suraya actually. Suraya, I think, said about this being an opportunity to really be open and speak freely. And I think the more spaces like that we can create to do that, it's not about right or wrong. It's not about comparing and saying, oh, my thing is better or bigger or, blah, 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 whatever. It's just about that human connection at the end of the day. It's about accepting ourselves for who we are and celebrating that. And every single one of us has that to celebrate. I'll be taking a call with Semal offline because there was something that came up about perfection. And I have a art-based activity session workshop based on that explores these ideas of perfection and how to let it go. So I'm going to have a chat with Semal offline. So maybe that's something that we can bring. If any of you, Natasha, I really hope that you connect with me offline as well, because I was also homeless 6 years ago with my children following domestic abuse, breakdown of my marriage. So I'd love to connect and see whether we can support each other. If any of you are facing any difficulties or any topics that you'd like to talk to me about, I'm on I think I'm on Clubhouse, Facebook, Instagram, all the usual.
I have a suggestion. Yasho, shall we all put our Instagrams on the chat and then everyone can connect maybe?
Yeah, that's fine. So if do reach out. I do offer as much free support as I can to anybody. I have quite a few pro bono cases that I take on as well. So if I can help in any way, do let me know, whatever the way that might be. And I hope all of us, luck and peace in our journeys with trauma, because I no longer believe that there's a single person out there who has not been traumatized or experienced trauma. So let's all find the wisdom in it. Let's all find somehow, as difficult as it is, let's find the beauty in it. And let's all get there and let's all feel free. And connected. That's what's important at the end of the day, right? So all the very best to all of you. And thank you. I did get a comment that I was looking very pissed off. I got a private message saying you look very pissed off, and I'm not pissed off. I'm just pregnant and very uncomfortable.
It's the RBF.
With my gloomy face today, it is much brighter.
No, you look gorgeous.
So thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Congratulations once again. Congratulations.
Yeah, big congratulations.
Thank you
So
so
thank
much,
you,
guys.
Semal.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. This was an excellent
Thank you,
forum.
Shifani, Natasha, for your comments, and everyone at HomeTree Co-working Space for having this session. Look forward to the community, the physical session that we will be having. Yeah, and thank you. Thank you. I'm already getting messages thanking us for having this. So hopefully it helps a lot of individuals.
And I'd love to still hang out beyond these sessions. Also, we can all still hang out and have chats, I think, and let's have more. I think Semal, I have a taste for it now. Now I want more. So you're gonna have to provide.
Yeah. Totally. I have been wanting to do this for a while, and I feel like this was a good thing to get us back in and start. So really looking forward to co-creating something with you and the rest. Awesome.
Yay, thank you.
Cool. Thank you everyone who joined in the discussion. Stay tuned on our HomeTree social media, or you can even message us on our Instagram. But in 2 weeks, we'll definitely be having a physical screening. And if you want to see another community discussion like this on Wisdom of Trauma clips, let us know and we will organize that as well. Awesome. Take care. Have a lovely Saturday evening.
Have an awesome weekend.
Have an
Thank you,
awesome
everybody. Have a great evening. Bye.
Bye.